Welcome old family and new family to Cypher Scholars, part education, part hip-hop, all culture. You're listening to your boy Brandon White, aka Bushido Garvey, as I'm known in many MC circles.
And this is your boy co-host Rob Blow.
Yes. Again, this is Cypher Scholars. For those who don't know, it's part education, part hip-hop, all culture, and we try to do our best to stay local, global, and universal. So we have a packed up syllabus this afternoon. We're going to be talking about Betsy Devos getting sued, right? The education secretary, the boss of all bosses in education, being sued by former high school and college graduates. We're going to talk about why and how. Then we're going to be talking a bit about the Nancy Pelosi, Donald Trump, Ilhan Omar, Alexander Ocasio-Cortez whole issue and situation with Trump making some racist statements about those four, how it's all tied into the different forms of racism in politics in America. And then we're going to talk a bit about Lil Nas X coming out of the closet and the whole arc of history of LBGTQ folk in hip-hop. So let's go ahead and get busy. So we have Betsy Devos, the boss of all bosses, unfortunately, when it comes to education in the United States.
Okay.
She has had a run that's just been plagued with, questionings and scandals and, truth be told, straight up incompetence. Most recently, she's been getting sued by the American Federation of Teachers, which is the boss of all bosses when it comes to teachers' unions. Right, and they're suing her over a loan forgiveness program. So for all those who are college graduates and picked up non-lucrative jobs like teaching or social work or working for a nonprofit, you probably are aware of the public service loan forgiveness program, right? And this program allows for you to have your loans forgiven if you pay for them 10 years straight.
Yep, that's true.
However, even though like 1 million people have applied to this, only 1% have gotten this approved.
I did, yep. That was kind of crazy to read about that. That was very crazy to read about that.
Yeah.
Keep on going though, yeah.
No, I mean, so, people is applying, myself included. I got the teacher loan forgiveness jump off, but like the student loan forgiveness hasn't been popping yet. And truth be told, like when you apply, the language is a little vague and unclear, and because of that, it kind of discourages you to feel like you're gonna get it, even though it makes sense for you to get it. And so even my application process has been a little shaky because of that. And, I would hear people say, like, I applied for that, but I didn't get it. I applied for that, but I didn't get it. And sure enough, only 1% of applicants are really getting this. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of debt that people who take up professions that are not super lucrative run into because they spent a lot of money going to school for those professions. You know what I'm saying? So, but they're not able to get them forgiven. And I just don't know how coincidental that is. You feel me?
Alright. So it could be many reasons why that there's a 1% of people that does receive their student loans when they apply. The others that don't receive it, the other 99% of the people that apply that don't receive it, they're going through situations as there's some reasons such as are their student loans related to direct loans? Are their student loans direct loans?
Right.
I don't know if you saw that. Or and I think direct loans have connection to, they basically have to be public loans. They can't be private loans. They cannot be private loans, in other words.
Gotcha.
Right? And one company that would probably represent a private loan is, I know the abbreviation of this company, FFEL. I don't know the name of it, the abbreviated
it's all good.
name, but yeah, so your private loans would not be a requirement to get your student loan forgiven at all. So is that there's a couple of other reasons as well too, but that's definitely one big one right there.
So, all right, fine. Now my question still is, what that doesn't explain 1%. You know what I'm saying? Like I get, all right, so fine. You have more exact language or more exact demands about what kind of loans. One, I've looked at the form. That is not mega clear. I'm not to say it's not in there, and not to say that closer reads aren't warranted, but that's not very clear.
Oh.
And also people are applying, right? And nobody's telling them like, yo, like this is the wrong type of loan. So they'll, pay down the debt over 10 years just to find out at the end of it that they got to start the program over because of whatever stipulation was not met. You know what I'm saying? So they'll go on for a decade. Nobody from the Department of Ed will correct it. Yep. Nobody in the beginning, nobody will be like, you know what? Like, this doesn't meet this requirement. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just whenever you have a situation where you're giving away free money, especially if it's from the government, there's this inherent like little loopholes and complicated languages that make it hard for you to get it. Because who's really trying to give away free money?
All right, so you can. All right. Let's say if you did pay your private loans, you have private loans, you paid these private loans during those 10 years, right?
Yeah.
If you can actually, there's a loophole where you can change your private loans into direct loans or line it up with public loans, I guess. And what you will have to do is you will have to go to the Federal Student Aid website, check for your loans to see if it says direct. If it isn't, you could probably call up your
so you can
their private company. You could call up the loan company, right, and have them switch it over to direct. I believe you could do that. And also, there's a requirement after that. Once you do that, right, like you could meet after you pay off a certain number of loans under private. You have the ability to call the company, switch it over, and then you have to pay additional 120 loans or something like that, or whatever requirements that they ask of you to do, so to meet those requirements to to get your loans forgiven, right?
Indeed.
Now let's talk about in the suit, man. What were some of the things that they're accusing accusing in the suit?
Well, like I was saying, like it's just the whole thing of like, okay, you apply, you go through the process. One person from New York, an art teacher from New York Public Schools, said that she was told that one of her loans was not eligible and that she had to start over. After one loan, right, was not eligible. She had been paying for this for 10 years. So again, why after 10 years would you then start to get nitpicky? You know what I'm saying? Like, other people who are plaintiffs are, complaining about similar things, you know what I'm saying, about how the rules are hard to navigate, right? And then didn't find out until a decade passed, that the program didn't work, and then they have to start over, like, so they're suing over that. And Amy Weingarten, what's her name? Randy Weingarten, who's the president of the AFT, the American Federation of Teachers. Again, that's big boss in terms of teacher unions, was like, instead of helping millions of Americans owed debt relief under the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, Devos has hurt and pauperized them. Instead of working with lawmakers to improve the program that millions of teachers, firefighters, nurses, and first responders deserve, Devos has vandalized it. So again, it's not just about teachers. Anybody who does like a public service kind of job, right, that is not high paying, is eligible for, or supposedly eligible for this. And it's just, to me, it's just like American tricknology 101, half cryptic legalese that provides the illusion of opportunity and equity, but when you actually read the fine print, it preserves hierarchy. You feel me? Like, so, but that goes back to what we was talking about in terms of all these candidates, presidential candidates, trying to have student loan forgiveness popping. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, but let me ask you, if the government, and to be partially fair to Devos, like, this was a program that was popping prior to her hopping into office. Right? So you can't put all of it on her. It was
created in 2007 by Congress.
Right, exactly. So if we can't get this right, where you're only focusing on...
This is before
exactly,
Obama, right?
So if you can't even get this right, where you are trying to only have certain people have loan forgiveness after 10 years, how is a program to just forgive, like, loans the way that Bernie and Elizabeth Warren and Kristen Gillibrand are talking? How, like, that's way bigger than this. We're not even doing this right. So how do you picture that working?
I don't know. I guess you will have to look into what the plaintiffs are asking for. You know what I mean? They're saying that they're accusing the educational department of grossly mismanaging the loans, right? Grossly mismanagement in quotes. They're saying that they're violating the due process of the Fifth Amendment. The due process clause in the Fifth Amendment, they're violating that. So maybe it might have something to do with the laws, in connection with the laws. Also, they're accusing the Department of the Department of Education that I guess the student loan services are making misrepresentation to the borrowers, and that causes the borrowers to get rejected for student loan forgiveness.
Right, exactly.
So,
like that's part of the clause where it's just like there's a law where if there's like misinformation or defrauding, then you don't have to. You're not obligated to pay any student loans. So that's kind of the law that they're riding with right now in terms of the lawsuit.
So I guess the tactics you might have to you have to get at the borrowers, right? The borrowers might have to follow some type of new process or something like that. So so it could be some clarity between the borrowers and the servicers.
Word up.
And something with the Fifth Amendment, the due process clause in the Fifth Amendment. You know what I mean? I guess these are the major issues right here. So it sounds like that's what you have to look into.
Well, hopefully, like whoever ends up, becoming president that has an aggressive student loan forgiveness program, they're careful about making sure that those things are there, that the language is clear, and that the opportunities are authentically present, right? So, but we got to move on to the next part of the syllabus. Man, we have this whole mess between Donald Trump, Nancy Pelosi, and who I call the Super Friends, SUPA friends, right? The AOC, I want to make sure I'm saying her name right, Rashid Tlaib, I believe I'm saying her name right. Forgive me if I'm not.
Yeah, Rashid's, yeah.
Ilhan Omar and Sister Presley, right? So there's this whole mess. I'm gonna see if I can break it down in like 20 seconds. Let's see if I can do this in 20 seconds. Boom. Those four wrote against that border bill because it wasn't protecting the migrants enough. Pelosi was doing some things behind their back in terms of just kind of clandestinely, trying to like diminish what their argument.
Yep.
Those four called her out
she wanted
as a
to hold the
racist
votes.
piece. Yes, saying that it was a racialized act. Right? Pelosi said, nah, it wasn't racist. Trump jumps in and says, this is disgusting how they're treating Nancy Pelosi, and that these women need to go back to where they came from and fix the problems of their quote unquote supposed native countries, right? So that wasn't 20 seconds, but that was fast. I think the obvious just sticks out to me, like where they came from. Like 3 out of the 4 were born in the United States. Only one that wasn't was Ilhan Omar. She came over as a refugee at like around age 12. Yep. Right. Second most obvious thing, Trump talks about how polite he is to, how he has to deal with Nancy Pelosi, and he's not rude about it. Like he's been very rude to Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, they've been beefing.
And he doesn't know how to beef, and he's been hyper disrespectful to her. Obvious thing number 2. Obvious thing number 3, even if he was never rude to Nancy Pelosi, there are dozens of other people in politics that he's been hyper rude to in a way that doesn't even reflect how these 4 have interacted with Nancy Pelosi, right? Again, the Super Friends, right? So, how many instances do we need for it to be obvious that this man here is like very clearly like not even updated racist or upgraded racist, just like racism 2.0.
You know what? It's kind of
1.0 was slavery. He's like 2.0, maybe 2.5.
It makes me think about this other official that's in Congress. I forgot his name. And it's no. Oh, it makes me think about a reporter that works for, I believe, Fox News or something like that. Oh man, his name starts with a J though. His name starts with a J.
I mean, it could be any of them.
I don't know, man.
It could be Sean Hannity. It could be
something
Carlson
Hill.
Tucker.
Something Hill.
I don't even know.
Whatever. So, but basically, he's been more radical with his rhetoric on certain people. Joyner Hill or something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of radical people with radical rhetoric. But basically, they're saying that. All right, so he's more radical, right? He sounds like he's more right wingist with his rhetoric now, right? And which would be almost in line with the white nationalists of the days and stuff like that. And they're basically saying that his rhetoric is not. They're not calling it flat out racism. They gave it another term, and it was kind of crazy. The term that they used, I don't know the term, but it's like they don't want to like
the alt-right.
No. I'm talking about the speech itself. Like instead of
dog whistle politics.
No, it's just something totally different. I cannot believe it slipped my mind. But it seems like they're not trying to. People in the public eye, in the news, and the reports are not like, for example, the things that President Trump has said towards these women or anything like that. They're not calling it flat out racism or anything like that. They're going to give it a different term for some reason. They don't want it to. I don't know. It's like
they don't want it to land as the most obvious form of racism, because the most obvious form of racism is the type of stuff that does get people kicked out of their jobs or positions. If it's like obvious, like using the N-word, obvious, or using whatever the other derogatory term, obvious, or saying that people of color are inferior, obvious, like that kind of stuff. But like just because it's not jumping in your face doesn't mean that it's not walking in your face. It's still active in a lot. Like when you say something like go back to where you come from, when there's 3 out of the 4 are from here. One of them born 12 miles away from where Trump was born, and the other one it still doesn't matter. She's a U.S. citizen, and your own wife is not a native to the country, but she's white. Like that's just the backwards and obviously racist thing. I guess to us, to some people, it's just gonna amaze me how people who claim they're not racist can read this story and still vote for Trump again 2020. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the part about it.
It's like you gotta it's not even rhetoric anymore. It's like you gotta get caught with some type of action. You really gotta get caught with some type of action where it's like where it's evident to the point of no doubt. You know what I mean, that you might be racist or whatever, you know what I mean? But I mean, these are the times now. Like times are totally different now. If you were to go back and Geraldo's days, like back in the 1990s and all that stuff like that, like with the reporting versus the reporting of today's times, you know what I mean? You see a totally difference in censorship. You see totally difference in what things are being what things are being reported on. How people are criticizing the reports, you know what I mean, or how people outside of the reports are criticizing the reports, etc. Things like that, you know what I mean. So
I hear you. It's just like when we were growing up, in history books, in movies or documentaries about the old school racism 2.0, like Jim Crow, right? What was one of the main things that the Klan would say? Go back to your country. Right?
Yeah.
Literally, like your president is telling 4 women of color to go back to their countries. You know what I'm saying? Like that's crazy. Like his exact words are, so interesting to see, this is on Twitter, so interesting to see progressive Democrat congresswomen who originally came from countries, which again, 3 out of the 4 came from here, right? Whose governments are a complete and total catastrophe, the worst, most corrupt and inept anywhere in the world, if they even have a functioning government at all, now loudly and viciously telling people of the United States, the greatest and most powerful nation on earth, how government is being run. Why don't they go back and help fix the totally broken and crime-infested places from which they came? What gets more racist than that, dude? You know what I'm saying? Like that's Klan talk. That is, and he's bringing, like now I'm thinking of hip hop. Like, you know how like there's all this new technology that allows for producers to, you know, make beats. Like there's, you know, the MPC Touch, there's the, you know, Native Instruments Machine, but there's still always this push to go back to the MPC 2000, you know what I'm saying, or the SP 1200. He's trying to bring back the SP 1200 of racism. This is an old school form of racism that now people are more comfortable with expressing. You know what I'm saying? You couldn't say this in 2007 without losing your job. Hold up, he didn't finish. He said, these places need your help badly. You can't leave fast enough. I'm sure Nancy Pelosi would be very happy to quickly work out free travel arrangements.
See, yo, you know, even though those words are not aligned to politics, I think I found the term. They will call it, instead of racism, they will call it white identity politics.
Yeah.
White identity politics.
White identity politics.
Pay attention to that term. You might hear that more of that over
I believe
time.
it, because that wasn't more white identity.
And they related this term to a reporter. I think he either worked for Fox News or CNN or something like that. And I can't get his name. I can't even find this guy.
Like, the only person that's popping up for Fox News is Edie Hill, and that's a woman.
Nah, I think.
This was like years ago.
It's a guy that been working for years.
It wouldn't surprise me if it was Tucker Carlson, B. Because like
it might be Tucker Carlson.
That's
Tucker Carlson.
Yeah. Because like he be talking like this. You know what I'm saying? He be talking like this all the time. You know what I'm saying? But now let me say this though.
That's not him.
Let me say this though real quick. So Trump, you know, came to Nancy Pelosi's defense.
It is him. It's actually him. It's Tucker Carlson. Yep.
Okay. So Trump came to Nancy Pelosi's defense, right? And Nancy Pelosi was like, whoa, I don't co-sign that kind of statement, right? But let me ask you, what's more poisonous? Trump saying something like this, or Nancy Pelosi behind closed doors marginalizing these 4 women of color?
Nancy Pelosi marginalizing, I think. Words and actions is 2 different things, yo. But I mean, yo, probably Trump. Really, probably will be Trump, man, because it's out in the public's eye. It's gonna cause people to react a certain way and stuff like that. I don't know, but I feel like actions are holds more weight than words and stuff. So, what do you think? What do you think?
I think that's a good. Honestly, I don't. The way you just explained it, now I'm unsure. I was gonna say the Pelosi action is worse.
Yes,
but I wasn't sure. You
Yes,
mad thirsty about this, about finding out who said what, but go ahead.
Nah, I was just saying, yeah, Tucker Carlson said whatever about Ilhan Omar, right, with this white identity politics.
Yes.
And she was like, yo, she basically called him a racist fool.
Yeah.
In a quote, you know what I mean?
I mean, that he is.
My fault,
all you have to, you good. All you have to do is just watch. You don't have to watch a whole lot. Like, not only does he say it regularly on air, but like there's old recordings of him saying some absolutely foul and racist stuff. All you have to do is just Google Tucker Carlson racist comments, and you'll see them.
But they wouldn't call it racism. That's the thing. They wouldn't call it racism. You call it racism 2.0. It's called white identity politics, man. Or that's what they either saying that or something else. There's probably a couple other terms related to it. But
well, you know what? Like, and that says a lot about the ever-changing nature of white supremacy, because I think linguistics is a huge tool for white supremacy in terms of like making, because you program society with language. That's a major tool for programming society. And so if you don't have to look if you have a word that forces you to look in the mirror, like racism or racist, like it's not fun if you want to keep that. So instead, what do? You know what I'm saying? You put on a filter, right? You don't get the mirror. You put on a filter, right? And that filter is terms like white identity politics, alt-right, you know what I'm saying? Tea Party, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you now put a filter on the mirror that you have to look at before you every day, you know what I'm saying? So that way you don't have to come to terms with some of the more bigoted and prejudiced views that you have. You can just call it something else so you can believe it's something else, like white identity politics, when it's straight up racism. So that's just the tricky nature of it. But at the same time, you know what else is also tricky and still kind of racist? Like marginalizing 4 women of color because they don't want to push a bill that's complacent with people drinking out of toilets in detention centers, which is what AOC says she saw. You know what I'm saying? So, and then Nancy Pelosi says, whoa, I don't agree with Trump's xenophobic, because she came to Trump came to her aid, right, to support her. She was like, well, I don't support that. But like at the end of the day, like you may not support that kind of rhetoric, but you clearly have demonstrated actions that marginalize those folks of color. You know what I'm saying? So you did it without saying it. He said it without doing it, which may lead other people to do it. Lead other people to do it with language. So what's really worse? You know what I'm saying? Like again, I just don't trust politics, B. Like I really don't trust it, just because you did all that stuff behind closed doors. These sisters called you out and noted that it was a racial kind of thing, because again, it's them four. You denied it, and then this outright racist was like, oh, my white sister needs help, even though you've been loud and foul with her too. You know what I'm saying? You've shown your own gender discrimination and your own, because Trump is obviously like a misogynist. You've shown your own gender discrimination and your rude behavior towards her, but guess what? She's now being threatened by people of colors, just like a white racist will do, a white racist man will do, come to the rescue of his white woman, even if he doesn't respect his white woman all the way. Right? So here he is, trying to pretend like he care.
Yeah, and just remember, once again, a prime example of that, of the lack of respect is white women did not get the chance to vote until 1920.
Exactly.
During made possible by the 19th Amendment and the United States Constitution.
And weren't even active as people in politics for decades until decades after that. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it's just crazy. This is a ball of hot mess. Shout outs to those sisters doing what they got to do. But
not
now
even
we
100 years in.
Yeah, not even 100. Yeah, yep, exactly. It's not even 2020 yet. So we got to close out with our topic about Lil Nas X. Okay. And the arc of history regarding LGBTQ folk in hip hop. So recently, Lil Nas X came out as gay. Me and Rob were having a debate prior to this, talking about whether or not he was like the first, or how revolutionary or monumental this was. My argument was he was the first rapper of this stature in terms of like popularity and celebrity, right? Black male or male to do it. You know what I'm saying? And you mentioned a couple people.
Yeah, I felt like that was incorrect to say because it is. I felt like
he hasn't named anybody that matches that criteria yet, by the way. But
so I named people like Mr. C that came out, but
not the same level.
Right, not the same level, right? I named people like who else I named? I don't even know. But I actually found somebody else, like people like
also got caught. Like
I Love McConan did not get caught.
I Love McConan never said that he was gay.
Yes, he did.
He never said he was openly gay, B.
Wow.
I'm about to look that up.
You ain't on it, too.
Hold on a second.
When the song Tuesday came out, right? Drake did a remix. He topped the charts in the Billboard, right? He was definitely doing very well on the Billboard charts. And then after a while, he came out as a homosexual, and I don't even know if I'm saying the right term or anything like that, but please forgive me.
Yeah, well, just full disclosure, both of us are definitely in learning in terms of how to make sure that we are embracing and understanding our LBGTQ brothers and sisters. But yeah, I'm looking it up right now.
I Love McConan. He was definitely one of the first people that was doing very well during his time, right? And basically came out, my friend.
And I'm looking up the interview. I'm looking up the Billboard. And this has been Cypher Scholars. You've been listening to Cypher Scholars.
Nobody did not press him. He came out on his own. Okay, so
I'm looking at.
But also Young M.A. I've also named Young M.A.
That was different too, because as a woman,
she came out, even though she's a woman, whatever. It shouldn't be gender biased or nothing like that.
I was talking, but here's the thing: hip hop is gender biased because it's more okay for women to express like a sexual fluidity.
This is ladies' night, man.
You know what I'm saying? So, but to your point though, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this article. You got me. I Love McConan has come out as gay. The hip hop star shared his views with a string of tweets in the small hours Friday morning. As a fashion icon, I can't tell you about everybody else's closet. I can only tell you about mine, and it's time I've come out. And I Love McConan, while I will say,
I will say,
while I will say, I Love McConan has not achieved the same kind of success that I was talking about, but he still was a very successful. It still is a very successful rapper. So you got salute to you. You got that. Man, yo, we was arguing hard yesterday about about like, you know, who the monumental nature of Lil Nas X kind of coming out, and while he's the biggest to do it, like there's still very, very big people in their prime doing, including I Love Maconie. So absolutely. But that ties into this arc though that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
This arc
I was gonna just say that even though this was news, I guess it wasn't a surprise because this has been normalized throughout hip hop history. You know what I mean? Of rappers that are into that practice that lifestyle or anything like that. You know, things of that nature. So
yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, no, and Young Thug actually spoke on this. And for those who don't know, Young Thug, when he came out, like he did a lot of he just didn't go by binary rules of like gender, right? In terms of like how he dressed and stuff like that, wore dresses, said a lot of made a lot of comments that kind of like reflected gay sexual interests, right? Or just over the years in terms of his career, but he never said, you know, I am gay, right? But so he got asked by Adam 22 of No Jumper, how do you feel about Lil Nas X? And he was like, what exactly he said? He said,
this is Young Thug.
This is Young Thug, and he said, he said, I feel like he probably shouldn't have told the world. He shouldn't have told the world because these days, mother effers, it's just all judgment. It ain't even about music no more. As soon as the song come out, now everybody's gonna be like, this gay bleep N-word. N-words don't care to listen to the song no more. So, you know, like, he's still talking about the homophobia that can't exist, even though, like, you know, like Young Thug, Uzi Vert, just a lot. You can just even go deeper in terms of just like even some lines that rappers say that don't necessarily kind of like gender bend. You know what I'm saying, with their styles. Like there's an overall arc of like imagery that kind of like is like LBGTQ aesthetics, right? That happened before that, and even still Young Thug, especially Young Thug, and Young Thug is like, you know,
Lil B, Young Thug.
Lil B, Young Thug, exactly. And a lot of these dudes never came, just to be clear, none of these dudes ever said that they are gay, but they very clearly like kind of pushed people's perceptions and beliefs about sexuality. If you used to make a statement like I'm gay, like Lil B did, I think he called the song that, or a mixtape, I forgot what he did. If you make that kind of statement, you were clearly trying to push people's, you know, thinking or just views about, you know, sexual identity. You know what I'm saying? So, but a lot of these dudes never really came out and said, you know, I am a gay man, right? Even if they may, you know, dress a certain way or say certain things, it never got stated. And that's the other thing I'm learning about, like, you know, peace to my sister who's, you know, helping me become a little bit more aware of like LGBTQ history and dynamics. Like, you can do all those things, like you can, like, you know, have like a gender fluidity and balance about how you dress and appear, but not necessarily be gay or lesbian, right? So, you know, but like there's still a lot of messaging and stuff that would make it easier for somebody to eventually come down the line and be like, I am gay, right? And he's done that. I Love Maconie has done it. So good, you know, to your point, in terms of male rappers who have a lot of success. And there's just a lot of history with how this kind of moment in history can kind of you know, exist. So we are actually mad over time.
Whoa.
But it's all right. You've been listening to Cypher Scholars, part education, part hip hop, all culture. Thank you to all the listeners and supporters, you know what I'm saying, for listening to us, learning with us, you know what I'm saying. You can catch us every Tuesday from 1:30 to 2, right, on 104.3 Wheel FM. And you can also catch us online. Check us out on Facebook. Peace and progress.
Enjoy yourselves.